Was 2022 a good year for gaming? Well, I and my sister site, Push Square's very own Aaron Bain, are gonna sit down and have a chat about all things 2022, the highs, the lows, the controversies, what have you. I had a really nice time recording this, and I hope you enjoy watching it, but I will mention one thing. You see this thing right here? For some reason, it just wasn't on, and instead I had to record audio via the webcam, which makes for a funny little scene because it's just sat there mocking me for the entire video. Well, that's enough waffle from me. I hope you enjoy everything that me and Aaron talk about in the video, and feel free to let us know your answers in the comments. Anyway, let's get to it.
Hello, Craig.
Hi. Hi, Aaron. How you doing?
Doing good. Nice little day for a discussion of all things 2022, don't you think?
I do think because we're pretty much at the end of it, so it would be good to do a nice little roundup of some questions and, talk about our best bits and what also sucked, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to come out at this point.
You're talking to a guy from the Xbox team. There is nothing coming out. There's just nothing coming out this year.
Yeah. Sorry, tapping it. You've got 2023, but we'll kind of get into that later. So generally, then 2022. Do you think it was a good year for games? Generally speaking.
Generally speaking, I feel as though 2022 was okay. I feel like it had some really, really good highs, and it also had a lot of swampy nothingness, if I'm going to be completely honest. I obviously we have, like, my point of view being Xbox, it's been very, very quiet.
Yeah.
But I know, for instance, like, you over there have God of War Ragnarok and stuff like that to look forward to and play and experience, and I feel as though it's been a pretty decent year, but I'd be interested. What do you think? Do you have contrasting opinions, or?
I feel like, in the general kind of opinion from a PlayStation standpoint, it has been a good year. We've had 3 big exclusives with Gran Turismo 7, what's the other one? Horizon Forbidden West, and then God of War Ragnarok. There was also, was Ghostwire Tokyo a PlayStation exclusive?
It was and it wasn't. It was on PC.
Yeah, I never played that one, but
it was quite disappointing anyway. So we can just
I didn't like the look of it. As soon as I saw gameplay, I was like, I think I'll pass.
It's odd for me because I am such a sensory person, and I found myself watching so many videos about people walking through Tokyo in the rain. And I find it incredibly soothing, and that's what I thought would be like the driving point for that game, and it was, but then there was nothing else really that kept me there. So yeah.
I watch those videos, but for Switzerland. That's.
Oh, I do that as well.
Yeah,
I do that as well. It's the neurodiverse person in me. I love watching train videos. Like, don't get me started.
Yeah. So I mean, generally, like, I think it's been pretty good. We've obviously had like some big kind of titles, like. The fact that we're kind of past the point of the Elden Ring mania. I mean, do you remember back earlier in the year where people were losing their mind over the potential of this game?
Like, I mean, there is still lots of opportunity for people to be losing their mind. It's been in my such a big game for the entire year. It came out in February, right? It was very, very, very early on.
Yeah,
but I don't think that that's a game that will just quickly disappear. I feel like it's going to be going for ages. I know tons of people that still play all of the Souls games and just rave about it, absolutely mad. And Elden Ring popped fully off, and continues to, in my opinion. I don't think I'm over the mania of it. And yeah,
you just had the new mode get added as well, did it not? Like a Colosseum thing.
Oh, that sounds wild.
I think that just came out like a couple of weeks ago. But I never heard anything outside of the announcement for it. But I mean, I suppose that kind of generally brings us on to what you think is like the most important game of 2022. Now, to clarify to people watching, this wouldn't necessarily be the the best game, your game of the year, just like one that you thought was incredibly notable in 2022. What's the game for you, Craig?
I guess what you're saying is it's more about gaming as a community and everything that gaming is in 2022. Because we can talk about the personal stuff later on, but we're already touching on it. It's Elden Ring. Easy for me that it's just Elden Ring. Like, you've got games like Modern Warfare 2 that can sell an absolute heck ton of like games across the world globally, but they're multiplayer games, and when it comes to like Elden Ring, that game sold a lot of freaking games. And what makes it so important, I think, as a gaming celebration is the community that it fosters, the community that it creates, and just the cult following and popularity of it in general. Like, obviously, we all know about the Let Me Solo Her guy, right? You know about him?
Oh,
He's pretty wicked.
Yeah.
He was this altruistic player that would like spend his entire time playing Elden Ring and would just sit at the end for any suffering Elden Ring players that just can't beat the last boss, and he would just let me solo it, bro. Let me do it, and he would do it for it. And it's just like moments like that make the game so important and so special, is that it's got such a community element about it that I guess transcends just sales and game fulfillment in general.
Yeah, I think as well, for a lot of these different games that we've been like mentioning, Modern Warfare and stuff, they are very like short lifespan kind of games, and Elden Ring definitely will be a continual thing, even though it wasn't like the game of the year for me. Not being a huge fan of the Soulsborne series, like genre, but like I did enjoy Elden Ring. I think the changes that they made in terms of like going into an open world kind of non-linear path made a massive difference to me, because it meant that I could just kind of walk around and be like, look, there's a glowing tree, and here's a forest, and holy shit, there's a giant bear that's killing me now. You know, there's like all of these things that you can just stumble across, and it made it a lot more special to me. I didn't complete it, but that's another thing. You know, I
haven't completed it either, and I don't think that's because, you know, we don't try. It's a very hard game. It's known for being a very, very hard game, and there's a huge debate about whether or not Elden Ring should have accessibility options and so on. But the fact that it's such a hard game in itself almost makes it more of an event for people to talk about, and makes it just this like almost club. I guess there is reason for that conversation about accessibility to come out, but it's like you join a club when you beat a certain boss or something like that. It's just...
I think like to go to some of my experiences with that game, like playing it, I played a little bit of co-op with it, and it's the second boss, I think, the dude that like sticks his arm in a neck of a dragon and then just uses that for like fire and stuff. Do you know?
That's a pretty powerful move, yeah.
Well, that guy, like, I remember like screaming the house down playing that, because he had like the furthest reach for his fire attacks, and it was so funny playing it with my friend. And when we finally beat him, because we were just like trying to, you know, absolutely tank him as quickly as we could, and sometimes my friend would like sacrifice himself to try and get a bit more damage in. And those moments kind of stay with me in a way more so than like even some of the games that are in my top 5. It kind of sticks with me a bit. But
it's the community element. It's about the joy that you have with other people, and that's what always makes a more important or special gaming experience in general for me. And I imagine you had to replace some mics because you were peaking non-stop with all the screaming and stuff. The bosses are hard.
I'm very lucky that I have older neighbours with not the best hearing, because I would be kicked out otherwise, because like, oh lord, just screaming. But like, so that we're not sticking on we've got a lot to cover. Moving on, I want to go on to controversy of 2022. What is there a game to you that kind of sticks out as like something that was a bit like, why are we doing this? Or like, you know, there was a lot of discussion and debate around them. Is there something that comes to mind?
There is something that comes to mind, and it's not a game, so to speak. It's more so a collection of games owned by a group of companies. And the thing that is the biggest gaming controversy for me is the Activision Blizzard Microsoft acquisition. It's just a mess. It's convoluted. I had to write notes because it's so hard to keep up with what's going on. Like, I'm sure you've got some opinions, but I feel like for just anybody who's watching this that doesn't know fully what's going on, Microsoft announced an acquisition in January at the start of the year to purchase or merge with Activision Blizzard for, I think, like shy of $69 billion. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of cheddar.
That would mean it's a lot of cheddar. Microsoft got that cheese, and I guess that's part of the problem. That games like Call of Duty, Diablo, World of Warcraft, all of those would become part of the Microsoft family, in essence. And it didn't really sit well with Sony, and I guess also just fair trade markets, because the Competitions and Markets Authority, the Federal Trade Commission, they've all stepped in to have their say about the deal and how they feel about it being possibly negative for gaming industry in general. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like an absolute ongoing mess that is just not going to be solved anytime soon. And I just feel like that is the biggest cloud on 2022, which is just mad. Absolutely mad.
The thing that I had in mind seems so like small in comparison, but before I get onto that,
I like it though, because I could go for the big. I could go for the big one. I can go for the big fish.
Yeah, and I soften the blow with something a little bit, just a wee thing here, a wee serving for you at the side. Yeah, for
an entree.
For the Microsoft thing, like I have too small a brain to really comprehend like the all of the legal stuff that's going on with it. I think just kind of generally looking at it wasn't a move that surprised me, and I think it's been a thing that's sort of made both sides, like Sony and Microsoft, look bad in many ways. I'd say almost more so with Sony, because Sony are very much like, no, you can't do that. But Sony have a reputation as being the game people that have all the exclusives. That's like part of the selling point. When we look at the selling angles of both the PlayStation 5 and the Series X is your Game Pass machine. Get super good value for money. PlayStation is your exclusive machine. That's kind of when you narrow it down to like the singular reasons of why you would buy either console. PlayStation's exclusive. I think it's just because it's such a notable company when it comes to like big franchises. And obviously there's been a lot of talk as to whether Phil Spencer's like, no, we'll give you Call of Duty for 10 years or something, But then
it makes absolutely no sense for him to not.
I think it's a little hypocritical of Sony in my mind, actually, to just be like, you can't be doing this with exclusives because you are entirely about like your biggest selling games of the year are all going to be exclusives. That's where your market is. Like God of War Ragnarok just had the highest sales in the entire franchise. I can't remember if it became the fastest selling. It was like the fastest selling opening week, possibly in the PlayStation first party history. I'd need to double check that, but that seems to ring a bell to me.
It doesn't make any sense to why there would be such a fuss about it being, and like, it's not even going to be. But if it was an exclusive, it would make no sense to why there would be such an argument about it being such a problem when Microsoft acquires an exclusive to Sony, which I can imagine pitchforks coming for me a bit, but they just have the more consistent exclusives on the console. They just whip out these amazing solo campaigns constantly, and that you nailed it before by saying it's like the exclusive machine it's known for these great games, and Game Pass on Xbox is the selling point, this subscription, this live service where people say it's a problem that people aren't buying games on Microsoft anymore. Mm-hmm. I think they will be, and I think they do. Like, there's a bunch of great deals that I'm going to go buy one probably this week. But Game Pass having an extra title on it, being Call of Duty, I don't think has any legs for Sony to have a problem with, especially when it's going to be on Sony anyway, in probably the exact same capacity. So yeah, it's a big controversy that makes a lot of nonsense. It's
Yeah.
just an absolute pile of nonsense that I even think the legal brains of it have no idea what's going on. But for me, that's the biggest thing about the year, and I would like to pull me down and bring me to a solo game, which you feel as though is your biggest controversy of 2022.
Yeah, we're going low key now in comparison, but for me and from
all the way down
the PlayStation side of things, it was the Last of Us Part 1 remake. Partly because people saw this as like, why remake this game? It's only like 9 years old or whatever at the time of release. Then it came out as a £70 game, so it was a full price, like PS5 update. People freaked out about that. Then the perspective on the Last of Us franchise has really shifted over the last couple of years since the release of Part 2. There's a lot more negativity there that wasn't there before. And even though that wasn't there for Part 1, it's kind of like went over to Part 1 pure, like just as a result of Part 2. To quickly address the remake aspect, I think it was like very, evocative of the fact that people are somewhat negative towards The Last of Us, because Demon's Souls launched on the PS5. It was like 2 years younger, 2 years older than The Last of Us when it got its full PS5 remake at full pricing, and everyone was like totally cool with that. Like, and I know there's like elements to say like Demon's Souls wasn't available on PlayStation 4 or 5. Like, this is bringing it to a brand new generation. The Last of Us was with the remastered thing on PS4. Yeah. But like at the same time, for me, I'm a massive The Last of Us fan, and I thought for this being my 8th playthrough of the game, playing this when the PS5 remake came out.
That's a lot of heartbreak to go through there.
Oh yeah, I just love to be in a constant like state of emotional.
I just see you crying constantly and just like feeding your soul.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of it. I will admit I have weeped to The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2. They're incredible games, absolutely incredible games. I suppose where a lot of issue with The Last of Us Part 1 having a remake is, I guess, for me at least, and I'm sure lots of people feel the same, is that if we take a look at recently, The Witcher got its next-gen upgrade, and it's technically the same game with a bunch of different assets, a bunch of new assets that have been replaced the older stuff, and there's a bunch of like quality of life updates, as well as, I guess, FPS modes and all that sort of stuff. It looks really good, and it's elevated the game, and it's free. And the difference, I suppose, with The Last of Us Part 1 being a remake is that it was more of a ground-up kind of game, where it was built all the way into what it is, and not just, like, taking one thing and adding a new skin to it, really. Which, with the price range, to come back to that, for a game that has the same story, like, essentially the exact same story, to almost just receive a new coat of paint from a consumer player's perspective, it feels as though it's a bit hefty. Whereas we know the work that's gone into it would be different, for instance, than just changing a few assets, because they redid a bunch of stuff for it. But you're asking someone to spend money, and I've played that game. I love that game. It broke my heart, and I would love to see it break my heart again in a nicer, crispier, more up-to-date next-gen version, but I don't want to pay 30-ish pounds just for the skin when I know the story already.
I do think it was always like a constant balance. Like, there's a lot of issues with it. I am like one of these people, as a big fan of the franchise, of the series, I'm exactly the kind of person they're selling this game to. When it comes to like, I would buy it anyway. I would play it anyway if it wasn't anything to do with work. But it is a weird one because, yeah, you're right. I think you look at this game, you couldn't look at these side by side and think, oh man, it's just like a bit of a uptick in resolution. It's completely like, it looks fantastic.
All the faces are absolutely different. The animations are cleaned up. There's lighting system. It's completely built.
I think it's genuinely one of the best looking games on PlayStation 5 right now. But
you're giving me FOMO, dude. I'm gonna go waste my money.
But then the price the price is ridiculous, I think. £70, although, as I was just saying about the whole Demon Souls thing, the price is just, it's way too high. It's way too high for what it is. Like you're saying, it's just like a better looking version of a game you've played before, minus the multiplayer. So it's only the single player. It's actually got less than what the original had.
Removing some more value.
And if you have PS Plus, you've got The Last of Us Remastered in your PS5 anyway. So it's kind of like, if you're going for the first time, like, do you really care to spend the additional money, or do I just play this free version that's just maybe doesn't look quite as nice, but it still plays well? It's not aged terribly.
Mean, for me, I played The Last of Us on the PS4, and then I played it again on the PS5, and it runs better on the PS5. So it's like another step into a better version of that game. But then it's just too many questions to ask a consumer. It's too many reasons for them to just say, I'm not buying it, which begs to differ why they even put their price point up there in the first place. I understand work costs money, but when you're asking for something like this with the reasons of there's the free version for people who are already faithful to PlayStation and have all of their PS Plus, it just makes no sense to charge that much for something they've already got.
I almost think it's entirely down to them not wanting to like have a mixed message in terms of like how much a full price PlayStation 5 game costs. It's kind of like they've just went £70. You know what? Whatever we released, it's exclusive. Just stick that price on it, because then if they did release that for lesser, people might be saying, well, why was Demon Souls released at £70 and when it's a remake of a PS3 game as well? It's very it brings up some issues. I think, namely, one as well is this recent fascination with remakes. The Last of Us isn't necessarily one that's like needs to be remade. I enjoyed it, but as a big fan of the series, that's kind of why I did. It was like watching my favorite movie in 4K. But like other than that, it's a big talking point in the world of PlayStation. But I don't know.
You're saying it's a very good game, though. It's a very good game, and it's one of the best looking experiences on PlayStation. So what you would say is that despite the price tag and the controversy around it, it's not your biggest disappointment. It's not a disappointment in general.
Yeah, I like these professional segues. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you very much. Which, as Aaron's very pleased about, we're moving on to the next topic, which is the biggest disappointments of 2022. You can choose several, you can choose one. What would you say is the biggest disappointment for you?
For me, it's almost, again, to be just stupid with like complications. It's a game I liked, ultimately, but Gotham Knights for me was like the big disappointment of the year. I'm sure there's others that would come to my head eventually. But Gotham Knights was like a game I was super excited for, but I think in the run-up to release, they really confused and blurred the lines between, is this a single-player game? Is this a live service game? It's a little confusing. Then obviously the whole 30 FPS debacle happened when it's exclusively like a next-gen game. That was, that's not really on, especially for a game that's all about you sliding and flipping all over the place and punching up people. Would have been so much better with 60. I would have taken that over the 4K resolution. But it did look nice. I had fun with it. It's a nice co-op game. Had a cool story. But yeah, there was just like, it just kind of missed the heights of what it could have been, I think.
It had a lot to follow with the Arkham series, because they are one, like, if not the best superhero games I've played.
Yeah.
Batman, brilliant character. Arkham City as a whole, even Arkham Asylum, they're all amazing settings, and the combat is so fluid and silky that you get it with like Spider-Man, but with Batman, especially with Gotham Knights, the way that the combat works, you would want to feel every opportunity to experience like that silkiness. And with 30 FPS, I'll have to admit, I haven't played it because I was pushed away from it by 30 FPS and the limitations. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but for the life of me, there were a bunch of limitations that I was like, okay. And then 30 FPS was I don't want to spend my money on it.
Yeah, the 30 FPS was like, as soon as I got the code for this game, as soon as I booted it up, I just went, oh, is this running at 30? And then, like, it took me a long time to get past that, especially because I'm very, I love all the technical bells and whistles when it comes to 60 or beyond and 4K and all this. So, like, 30 to me is just, like, kind of a no-no when it comes to PS5. Like, if you're talking a big modern like AAA game and it's also coming exclusively to current gen consoles, it really should be running at 60 as a minimum. And I think if you were to ask any gamer out there, the majority of them were going to say they will take frame rate over resolution. Like that's just, it was a major misstep in my opinion.
Frames per second is something that for a long time people haven't experienced a consistent higher level of frames per second, and when it does step up in technology, it's always the driving point is to look at how slick and quick everything feels. And when games have been starting to implement that with the technology at hand, when games come back to 30 FPS, it's like taking away something that you think is essential in a lot of ways. And yeah, I would take 60 FPS over a shiny puddle. Yeah,
again, just to reiterate, like 30, it's just not the one. But what about you? What was your biggest disappointment of the year?
I can go into the grand scale thing again. So I'll start a bit smaller with the entree. Okay. For me, the biggest disappointment isn't a game that came out in 2022. It's just how it's progressed throughout 2022. And I am an absolute big fan of Halo and just the all of the franchise. I love it to bits. I've got all the books back there, and I love the world, and I feel like I'm the same with you with The Last of Us. You say they put out a 70 pound game and you'll buy it anyway. With Halo, I'm the same, but Infinite's roadmap, the lack of content and support that's been given to that game has been just absolutely disappointing for me. It almost feels like I'm trying to stick up for someone who is completely doing all of the wrong things. And like, I'll to everybody out in public, I'll be like, my child is not wrong. But then when I get home, I'll give them a right bollocking. So it's like that with Halo Infinite. They've come too late with Forge and co-op campaign. I'm having the best time. I'm playing with my mum, and she is the most wholesome, wonderful experience to play Halo with. It's stupid. I love it. But I just feel Halo would have benefited, Infinite would have benefited from a delay and even launched in 2022. So it just, for me, the biggest disappointment is Halo Infinite and the roadmap. But the grand scale, I won't go too much into it because I could drone on. I got a heck ton of notes here. It's just, I've said it before, it's the absolute lack of games and I guess exclusives for Xbox from Microsoft. It's been a very disappointing year. I think the Game Awards really capped off, I guess, the sad feeling when I believe, didn't we stay up for it? Did you stay up for it?
I did not stay up for that.
You're a smart man, because I did. And I signed in at 9 a.m. after staying up until like 4 a.m. waiting for something, and it just capped it off. There was hints there where maybe Xbox they've got a lot for 2023. They may have an event in 2023, but I just wanted to see something. I wanted to see a bunch of stuff. Just even, this game is coming. This game is in the works. Just anything from at least the Xbox Studio developers, because there was nothing. And we've had a ton of games being delayed till 2023. So as much as 2023 is probably going to be an incredible year, my biggest disappointment is how poor Xbox was in 2022. It was shockingly quiet.
I think at this stage is almost like you're in the like the waiting stage of like, because they've laid a lot of the groundwork for more exclusives and better games to come to Xbox exclusively, but you're still waiting for that. And I think 2023 is going to be a big year. Redfall is really part of the reason I've got my Xbox. I suppose you have in Starfield as well. I don't really care for Starfield, to be honest. I'm not
You
a
don't
big...
want to sit through, hang on, I've got the exact number. 250,000 dialogue trees. You don't want to sit through all of that?
No, I don't. We got to let's like get it moving, right? So biggest surprise of the year for you, go. What did you have?
It was Marvel Snap. I don't like phone games. I don't like them. There's nothing. It's not because they're like games on the phone. I think gaming can be played wherever. I've just got really fat thumbs and clunky big hands. Like I would describe myself as having paws. And for me, gaming on mobile is just not something I do. But I honestly can't put Marvel Snap down. I made a joke somewhere where it's like, I think I lost 5 years of my life. Ah, Thanos. Anyway,
it took me a second there. I was like, wait, what?
I've lost 5 years of my life playing this game, and it's only been out this year, so it's, for me, easily the biggest surprise, because I didn't think I wanted it, didn't know it was coming, and then when it did, I can't put it down. I'm probably going to play some after this. But
I just heard it. I remember seeing everyone like talking about it and posting online about Marvel Snap. I have not seen or like I don't know anything about it. Literally know nothing about it. I've never seen an advert or anything.
It is brilliant. It combines card dynamics, so you do like a bunch of combos with like your favorite Marvel heroes. You fight over 3 lanes, and you're fighting for power, so you want to win at least 2 of those lanes, and you get points and all that sort of stuff for it. But the thing that really makes it so special is the fact that there is so many combinations that you can just experiment to your heart's content, and you can play with Spider-Man, and I am a big Spider-Man fan, so just like anything Marvel, really, I'm gonna snap it up. I'm gonna snap it up. And that's why it's my biggest surprise. I love the game. But what's yours?
For me, it wasn't even a game that I like delved into like an awful lot, but it was seeing the Cyberpunk 2077 resurgence. Like all of a sudden they released the next gen patch with the PS5 and Series X. It immediately kind of irons out a lot of the issues and lets people see properly, like without the technical mishaps, that CD Projekt Red did actually make a really good like RPG again. And then like to see the game all of a sudden just hit this like second wind where like the reviews start going up, people are talking about it again, it's hitting peak player counts over on PC at least. I kind of like that because Cyberpunk was one of those like it was too big to disappoint back before, you know, I'd been talking about it forever. And it finally
after
comes
the successes of The Witcher as well.
Yeah.
You just expected an absolute home run again.
And then like it just didn't turn out to be that. I mean, I still have some issues with the game. Namely, I don't think the first person perspective works as well as they want it to. Feel like I'd rather it was third person. But generally though, to see the game, like I didn't have a lot of issues honestly with it when I played it on launch on PS5, but playing it again. And it had, like, it just looked really nice, and the lights were a lot nicer, and it was smoother, and just all of that allowed me to just kind of sink into the experience a lot more. So I thought that was a nice surprise, because there was a point early on last year, like January, whatever, where everyone was just like, oh, CD Projekt Red have done it, man. They are done it.
They had a rough year.
It was the constant delays of it as well. The constant delays. And then the fact that they managed to squeeze in The Witcher 3 next gen as well in 2022, when everyone, like, I would have bet money on the fact that they would not have got that game out in 2022. I was just like, they have not mentioned anything about it, you know, in ages. Yeah,
it did kind of come out of nowhere.
They're just like, we've got a few weeks left in the year, drop it! And then it's like, you know.
Boom, Geralt, success.
Yeah. So,
Thanks.
like, I suppose then to make it a little wider, like, the revival of CD Projekt Red's been nice over just, like, with Cyberpunk and Witcher. So that's been the big surprise for me. I've been glad to see it. Another, just a very brief one, was Sifu was quite a big surprise for me. It's a game I was not going to touch at all, and I absolutely loved it. It's, like, in my top 5 of the year.
It's definitely one that I want to get onto. It's been staring at me for a while now. And,
it's a nice, cozy game, I would say, if you were wanting something to just sit in the house with over Christmas.
You tell me that now. I just recorded my cozy games list, and
Damn it.
Unfortunately, it wasn't on there. It's too late, mate.
But
So we should probably move on to
yes,
the game of the year, at least our game of the year for each other personally, because we're all going to have our own versions of what we think the best game is. And what's yours?
predictably, as the guy that works for the PlayStation channel, it's God of War Ragnarok.
I am absolutely shocked. Can you tell?
Talk about biggest surprises of 2022. Get this game, and I will be vague. I'm a master at being vague with this game because that was all you could do in any of the videos that were released in the first few weeks. I think it's like genuinely, like a perfect game. It like. This is one of those games, like I was saying with the Cyberpunk. It was so big. It was the anticipation was like crazy. The hype, everyone was going mental for it. It just like, how could it be anywhere near as good as the first one, or how could it surpass it? And then it totally did. It was so much better than like I thought it would have been. It smashed past every one of my expectations. It expands the gameplay in a really satisfying way to make it even more addictive. The story is so much more epic, but it still balances like those crazy action scenes that you're just like in complete awe as Bear McCreary goes off on one with one of the greatest soundtracks ever put to a video game. Yeah. But then it also has these really quiet, intimate, emotional moments, and those are like it's the kind of balancing act of those two parts that make everything about this game so great, because you go to the action scenes and you care and you're like properly invested in the boss fights because of the groundwork they've laid and they've taken their time with it. And it's one of only 3 games that I have platinumed at this point. And it wasn't like I was intending to, or like as soon as I played the game I said I was going to. I just was like, came to the end of the game and thought, no, I'm not done. Like, I'm not ready to be done with this. And
that's all the hallmarks of a great game, where you don't want it to end.
Yeah. And that very, very rarely happens to me, because I'm a big like, right, I'm done and I'm going. Like, as soon as the campaign's done, I'm moving on to the next thing. If I even get to the end of the campaign most of the time. So like, to have one that I'd done that and then I sunk like 60 hours into it, got the platinum. It was such a great time. I can't say enough good things about this game, to be honest.
And you did a great job at keeping it vague.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. There's editing that video review. I didn't even include footage from like the first hour because I considered that to be spoilers. I was like, made sure it was just stuff that was so vague and generic that you would have never known anything. So
that's where, if you watch that review, it's just the same clip of Kratos hitting someone over and over again.
Yeah, just
that maybe that enemy appeared in the first game.
Yeah. What was your game of the year?
My game of the year is definitely chosen for a personal reason. I've got 2 in a way, because one of them means so much to me that I just couldn't ignore it. But I don't think it's my game of the year. It just did a lot for me, and that would be Splatoon 3. I personally, not to mention, it is a brilliant game, and I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. But the reason why I chose it is because I don't think I would be in this job right now if I didn't play it, if I didn't have the joy that I did with it. Because I was playing it when it first released. I think I did the like world premiere event that they released before the game actually went to market, and I found really, really big success on my personal YouTube channel, and it gave me the confidence that I can do all this. And when I saw the job for Pure Xbox, I was like, I can do it. I can do it. This is easily a proof to point that I can do this. So I applied for the job, and here I am. So for that reason, I will always be thankful to Splatoon 3. But when it comes to actual fulfillment and what game I think is the best game, I would say it's Marvel Midnight Suns. It's, again, got the Marvel factor, which is the reason why I absolutely love Marvel Snap. And I guess I'm a sucker for anything with Spider-Man in it. I completed the two Spider-Man games, Miles Morales and Spider-Man, on my PS5 just last month, and I never complete games, so I was like, oh, I must be on a Marvel roll, and Midnight Suns just doesn't disappoint. It feeds my tactics soul. It's got that Marvel factor, and genuinely, it's quite funny. And I'm not really that far through it, but it's made such an impact on me that when I asked myself the question, that's the game that stood out. And I guess that's as much as my reason for it. It's quite simple, but I think the game's brilliant. I truly recommend it to anybody, any tactics head that likes a bit of chaos with cards. Go for it.
I have been hearing a lot of good things about that game. It's not necessarily my game, but I love seeing like people go like really vibe with a game like that isn't just your kind of traditional or like the big games that you expect. That's a good pick, man. So just before we just to wrap things up, is there any game in particular that you're like looking forward to next year, 2023?
Let me just delete all of these notes. I'll choose one. I'll do my best. I think for me, the biggest game of 2023 that I'm looking forward to isn't even announced. I would absolutely love to see something from Gears 6. I just need a taste of where the story's going to go. If you've played 5, I'm not going to spoil it, but you're left with a choice, and I want to see where the story goes from that choice. Because I believe you can make... You obviously, you go either way. I want to see which one that Gears decides is canon. And at least how the story differs. But I love the world, and I just want to chainsaw everything again. I think Gear 6.
I think I recently just started Gear 4 again. Like, I've played for the majority of it, but I never finished it, so I've like started that again.
Well, if you need a co-op partner, I could always jump in with you.
Perfect. That would be great fun.
Gears is an absolute franchise that you can spend all your time and just plow through, and I'd happily get into my COG gear for you, my sir. Yeah.
Oh, good man.
Yeah.
Good
if
man.
you'll have me. But again, we'll keep this quick. So, what's a game or something that you're looking forward to in 2023?
Properly personal biased opinion here, but like Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora.
Spill the tea.
Such a big like Avatar, genuinely, like no joke, is probably one of my favorite films. Like, I was 13 at the time when it came out. It blew me away. I thought it was one of the greatest cinematic experiences I had ever had. I have not long seen the second movie. I'm going to see it again immediately after we've recorded here. So
you're going back to the IMAX cinema.
Yeah. So like I eat up all things Avatar, and then when they announced it, there's a couple of things I have doubts about. It's first person. Feel like it'd be a third person game, but it's a massive something. I can't remember, but it's a Ubisoft part that done the Division. So they're talking of making this really dynamic living world, this area of Pandora that we've never seen, and just to be like a big open world game within an IP that I love so much, like that's kind of it. I don't really get a lot of, movie tie-in stuff or big franchise stuff that's like, oh, that's me, I need to play that. So like Avatar's kind of that for me. I have my doubts because Ubisoft are the greatest developer at making middling open world games,
They do a really good job. Like you mentioned the Division. They made a really, really good feeling of the entire city that you're within. Is it Manhattan? I can't remember. But
yes,
the city itself is incredible. The snow is fantastic. And I will always remember the experiences that I had. But the gameplay itself was kind of a bit
Yeah.
But the actual world building is really cool, which I think could really benefit Avatar, considering how beautiful and gorgeous the landscapes are. I will say, though, I can confidently say this, I don't think that game will top Toy Story 3 as a movie game. Toy Story 3 is the greatest movie game, and my wife, my mum, everyone on this planet will agree with me.
I
Toy
think,
Story 3, greatest game.
I think Peter Jackson's King Kong the video game wants to have a word with you.
Blasphemy. Blasphemy. Have you played Toy Story 3?
I don't think I have, no.
There you go. You can't talk.
I can't really talk about it. I will quickly say Spider-Man 2. As a PlayStation guy, I kind of have to say that I'm excited for that. I'm assuming you probably are as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's fresh in my mind.
Yep. So that should be good as well. But I'm saying Avatar, The Last of Us multiplayer game. That's my most anticipated game. That Factions is an underrated gem. I'm just rattling this off now because we need to wrap up. But that is hands down one of the best and most underrated multiplayer experiences on PlayStation to date. And I can't wait to see what Naughty Dog have done to expand upon it with this bigger take, whatever that ends up being. So yeah.
I mean, it would be absolutely shocking if you forgot The Last of Us in some capacity.
I can't believe I'm sitting here talking about I mean, I'm hyped for Avatar, but like Avatar's like, will it be good? Yeah, but like
I'll tell you what, I'll let you off because it's the end of the year. We're all winding down for Christmas and 2023, and yeah, I suppose I can forgive you. I hope everybody else can.
Yeah. But yeah, I suppose that's been our 2022 review. It's been great talking to you, man. Hopefully we can
It's been fantastic.
Plenty more of this in 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, and a great way to make sure that we do that is to like the video and let our bosses know that you enjoy this kind of content.
Yeah. Just say, Aaron and Craig, the dynamic, it was popping. Like, we love it. Just more of this. And it'll happen, you know.
we'll keep your summers cool because AC is fresh.
Oh yeah,
that's us. Yeah. There you go. We're AC, buddy. That was a stretch.